What's this? It's a hexadecimal number and it looks very like a memory address. In fact, this is an address. But wait a minute. What's this? Well, a number between square brackets is an array index. It looks as though I'm indexing into a memory address. Is that possible? Yes, it is. It's possible because an array is an address. And everything you do with an array, well, that's just pointer arithmetic. Confused? With any luck, by the end of this video, you won't be. Now I explained the basics of arrays in another video. I've put the link to that down below. From some of the comments on that video, it's become clear to me that some C programmers have mistaken ideas about what an array in C actually is. So in this video, I'm going to dig down deeper to take a really low-level look at what's going on. Arrays in higher-level languages, particularly object-oriented languages, may be defined as special list types with all kinds of built-in behavior or methods and data, that's fields or properties, all bundled up together. In C, nothing could be further from the truth. C is not some kind of low-level Java. Think of it rather as a high-level assembly language. A C array is just an address which defines the location where you can store some items of data. In C, the compiler simply reserves space for the array's data. Look at this. I've got this array up here, array y, and it's an array of 6 integers. I'll run this program in the Visual Studio debugger, and now I can take a look at data that's stored in memory. You can do this from the debug window up here, or just using the keyboard shortcut Ctrl-D-Y, and that opens the memory window. Now up here I can enter the array name, that's y, and it will find the address. And look, I'm going to copy this address for future use. Now let's have a look what's at this address. So you can see here there's, if you look at the first column, it's the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the integer data that I initialized the array with, where each integer, each row is 4 bytes forming one integer. Now there's 0 at the base address, then each subsequent address, that's each index in the array, has the other ints 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and my printf statement down here, when I run this, it just shows what's at index 2. Okay, so let's stop this. Now that hexadecimal number that was the array address, I'm going to look at that in a moment, but first let me show you one important detail. I've set this project property to, in the linker advanced, the randomized base address has been set to this value, no dynamic base, no. That's in order to ensure that the same address is used whenever I run this program. Now you don't normally need to do that, but it makes it easier for me to show you what's going on here because the array will be located at the same address whenever I run it. Okay, so remember I copied that address, so I'm now going to get rid of this array y here and put in its place the address that I just copied from the memory window. That was the address of the array y. And one extra little bit of syntax I need to add here is this int pointer. So I've cast the address to an int pointer. That's something which if I declared it as an array, then I wouldn't need to do that because it would be done automatically by the compiler. But now having done that, I can treat this address as an array with integer sized offsets. Let me run the program in the debugger. And up here in the memory window, I can see, as before, that those addresses have been initialized with the integer data, and the output is the same as it was when I was indexing into the array y. Here's a slightly expanded version of my program. I have the same array, I found its address, and I've stuffed these 3 integers into the array at these offsets. That is by using an int pointer. I've moved along the array one 32-bit integer's worth of memory at a time from index 0 to index 1 and then to index 2, and I've inserted these new int values at those memory locations. Let me debug this and check that I've got the correct address for y, the array. So there it is up there. And now as I step through this in the debugger, watch the values in the array carefully and see what happens. I'm about to change the value 0 here to 2, so let me step, and there you can see it's been changed. The memory window shows the changes in red, and now I'm about to change 1 to 4. There it is. And 2 to 6. But maybe you think I've cheated. Maybe you think that somehow y is really some kind of high-level array object, and that I'm just pointing to it when I index into it using a memory address. Okay, well, let's put that to the test. Let's get rid of the array completely. Don't do what I'm doing. Writing data at some arbitrary address like this could cause disaster, because I haven't even told the compiler that's what I plan to do. It knew what I was up to when I formally declared and initialized an array, and when I did that, I told the compiler that I wanted some memory set aside for the data that I specified at the address of the array. But now I'm going to be doing potentially dangerous programming purely to show you that I can use an address as if I declared it to be an array. I'm definitely not suggesting that you should do this in your own programs. Okay, so now back to the code. Okay, so I've deleted the array y, but I'm going to use the same address as before. Let's debug it. And I can step through the code. And hey presto, it works just the same. I can step through the code and the three integers 2, 4 and 6 are put at the addresses given by the specified offsets 0, 1 and 2. But there is no array y anymore. This is just a number, an address, and yet the effect is exactly the same as when I declared an array. So here I've used a plain address as an array. To put elements into the array, I've used simple pointer arithmetic to count along a certain number of bytes. I've been compiling 32-bit programs, so an int has 4 bytes. So each time I move through an integer-sized chunk of memory, using my int pointer, I move 4 bytes further along from the base address. Now let me go over a few other common misconceptions. First, if an array is just an address, how come sizeof returns some big number, bigger than the size of an address? Well, this is something that a number of people have mentioned in the comment thread to my last video. Some programmers seem to think that sizeof can be used to demonstrate that an array is not an address, because you can use sizeof to calculate the size of an array, that is, the amount of memory that it occupies, and that is likely to be bigger than the size of an address. No, that's not how this works. Let me explain. Sizeof is a compile time operator. It's not a function that calculates a size at runtime. In some high-level or object-oriented languages, there may be functions or methods that take some sort of array object as an argument, and from that object they can calculate the array size, but not in C. That's not how sizeof works. As I said, sizeof is a compile time, and that's important. It's a compile time operator. At compile time, the compiler knows how much memory you want to allocate for an array because you've initialized that array with a certain number of elements of a certain type. And that's all that sizeof tells you. Here my array y has been initialized with 6 ints. Each 32-bit int takes up 4 bytes. 6 times 4 is 24. So sizeof calculates that. Here I have the variable array size to store that value, and if I run the debugger and view the disassembly, and I can do that incidentally in Visual Studio from the debug menu, and you just select the disassembly window here. So if I look here, I can see the value of array size, and it shows me it's 18H. That's a hexadecimal value. In Visual Studio, I hover over that and it shows me the decimal value alongside it, which is 24, and that's exactly what I predicted, 24 bytes. So let's stop this, add another int to this array, and run it again. And now this should be another 4 bytes, so this time it should give me the value of 28 bytes. And here it is. This time the value is in hex 1ch, and I can see that's equivalent to 28. That's 28 bytes. So this is entirely predictable. I can work this out myself without needing to use sizeof, because all the information is there in the data items, here the integers, that I specify when I initialize the array. So if you want to understand arrays in C, sizeof is not the way to do it. When used with an array, it tells me the amount of memory allocated to hold the series of data items with which the array is initialized, and that's all. There's nothing very special about sizeof. It tells us nothing at all about the array Y, which compiles to an address. It just tells us the amount of memory needed to store a certain series of data items at that address and at subsequent addresses by calculating the amount of memory needed to store the values which we've put in the initialization of the array. Some people use sizeof to calculate the length of the array when it's passed to a function. But since sizeof doesn't tell you anything you don't already know, it isn't needed. If you know an array has 6 elements, you might just as well pass the integer 6. But you may ask, don't arrays decay to pointers when they're passed to a function? Well, now, I don't know who first came up with the idea of decaying arrays, but really this is just a complicated way of describing a very simple thing. The idea seems to be that an initialized array is a high-level object with a list of typed items, but when an array is passed to a function, that high-level information magically vanishes, and the array is equally magically turned into a pointer. The truth is much simpler. The array never changes. It's always an address, and that is what is passed to a function. The function may assign that value, that address, to a pointer parameter. But the array itself never changes because it's an address. Once you understand that, everything else becomes so much simpler. Another misconception that people have is that an array name is a variable because the contents of the array can be modified. Now, as I hope you understand by now, the idea that an array has contents, well, it's not really true. An array name, by the time your program has been compiled and loaded, has been replaced with a number. That number represents a memory address. What you may think of as the contents of the array are just chunks of data stored at that address and at adjacent locations. So the value of the array Y can't be changed. It's a fixed address. But just as I can put data items at an address, as I've already shown, or at offsets from that address, so too I can put or modify data items at the addresses of my array or the offsets from it. The array, that is the address, remains constant. The data stored at that address and at subsequent addresses can be changed. Okay, so let's now dig down a bit deeper by disassembling a small C program. I'll do this with the help of the Visual Studio debugger. This will show me the assembly language equivalent of the C program, so I can see at a lower level what instructions are actually being executed. If you don't understand assembly language, don't worry, I'll keep this really, really simple. Here I am in the debugger. I'm using the disassembly window to look at the assembly language instructions corresponding to my C code. I want to concentrate on this bit of code here, where I set element 5, which is the 6th element of my zero-based array, to 0, and this is the disassembly. Let's look at this. The first instruction loads the register EAX, which is a special bit of fast storage memory, with the value 4. In other words, it saves that value into the register. This is the size of an integer, 4 bytes. If we had an array of structs, say, where the struct size is 40, then the value 40 would be loaded. This is known as the stride of the array. The stride is the size of an individual element of an array. It's the size of the step you'd need to take to move to the next element. The second instruction multiplies the stride by the index. Here that's 5 to get 20. This provides an offset from the base of the array. The value 20 is now loaded into another register, ECX. The third line looks a bit more complicated because of the gnarly Intel assembly syntax. D-word, PTR, well, that simply means write a double word into memory. More modern assemblers do without the D-word PTR thing, but in the Intel assembly language, it's been around since the dawn of time, so we have to learn to live with it. A simple translation of this line would be set the memory location at this address, which is the address of the array y, plus an offset of 20, which is stored in the register ECX, to the value 0. That is, stuff the integer 0 into a chunk of memory 20 bytes along from the address of y. And that's it. There's no sizeof, no checking of an array size or bounds. The only things that are encoded, and it's in the machine instruction itself, not in any data anywhere, is the base address of the array and its stride, which is used to define its indexes. And incidentally, if I do the same sort of operation with an address instead of an array, here I put 2 at index 5, or rather at an address 5 integer offsets, that's 20 bytes, away from the specified address, well, look at the assembly language. It's the same as when I was using an array. Now, as I said earlier, given that an array is no more than an address, all the useful things that you can do with it are done by pointer arithmetic. We've seen some examples already where I navigate through an array by multiplying the number of data items by the size of the data type. And that's all that array indexes are in C. They're simplified ways of doing this kind of pointer arithmetic. If you've never come across that idea before, it might be hard to fix it in your mind. I'll return to look at array stride and pointer arithmetic in more depth in another video soon. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, well, click the subscribe button and the little bell so that you're notified whenever I upload new videos. And I'll see you again soon with something different.